Immersed robot.
So HTC finally announced the Vive FLOW after a long week of significant leaks leading up to the event, and because of this there weren't really too many surprises during the announcement. But just to sum up, the Vive FLOW is a consumer-focused device which is targeted at relaxation, media viewing, mindfulness, and perhaps even some casual gaming and productivity too. It's priced at $499 or £499 over here in the UK, and is available to pre-order now for release in November. It's a 6 degrees of freedom headset which has a cable tether for power. Now it does have a small battery built into the headset itself, but it's only really designed to last for a few minutes as you swap over power sources or give you time to save your work and exit out before it shuts down. So it does require constant power. Now this can come from any USB source, basically any USB 3.0 source or higher, so a wall outlet or a battery power bank, or even your phone. Actually, you can use an Android phone to charge this as well. And you can also use an Android phone as a controller, a 3DOF controller, although HTC have said that they are working on hand tracking and that will be coming in a future update. Also, by linking the headset to an Android phone, you can mirror the screen and view video apps and things like that within the headset, streaming video apps. So you can view these videos on a huge 200-inch screen, virtual screen within your headset. And one of the main features about this product that HTC did mention time and again in some of the promotional material is the form factor and weight of the device, which is only 189 grams and is, by all the hands-on impressions I've seen so far, light enough and comfortable enough to wear for long periods of time. The resolution and visual clarity seem to be roughly around the same as the Quest 2, perhaps slightly lower resolution, and also the field of view is also probably slightly smaller than the Quest 2 as well, just again going off some of the hands-on impressions that I've read. Now the optical system is quite interesting in that it allows the screens to be slightly closer to the lenses than we've seen in some other VR headsets. It does this by using some reflection technology and stuff like that, but it also offers diopter dials to eliminate the need for most people to use glasses within the headset, and by doing this they've reduced the amount of eye relief in the eye box itself to allow for glasses because this is no longer needed. So overall the form factor of the device in total is very, it's thinner than we're used to in most VR headsets. So that's all of the more basic sort of specs and features of this device so far. There's plenty more that I could go into on all that, but I'm sure you've read a lot about this or seen a lot about the device already anyway. So with all that said, I actually consider this product to be quite an interesting concept overall, and it's definitely an interesting move in the consumer space for HTC, and I can actually see the Vive FLOW as quite an interesting and useful and attractive product category for certain types of people. And looking at it from the outside perspective, a more mainstream perspective away from the ingrained VR community, it does seem to fulfill an interesting niche in the space of a wider VR ecosystem, perhaps aimed at a more mature audience, an older audience perhaps, that are not coming from the same background as early adopters or tech enthusiasts necessarily. And as VR continues to progress in the coming years and becomes ever more compelling in non-gaming applications, then I can actually see devices similar to the Vive FLOW finding their feet more firmly in that kind of space. Now it all comes down to timing. It might be too early still for this type of device, but I see the place for it in the VR ecosystem as a whole. However, I do think there are a few inherent problems or compromises that have unfortunately had to be made by HTC that make this particular product, the Vive FLOW, and its potential success a question. So the elephant in the room is, how much would someone be prepared to pay for a device like this? And in a world where VR hardware might have the prices or the perspective of prices distorted slightly by the heavily subsidised Quest 2, it's difficult to see a huge market for HTC with the Vive FLOW. But it does have a lot going for it in terms of comfort, design, and filling a space for people who have very little interest in VR gaming. But as always, price is a significant reason why people will or will not purchase the product. And the simple fact is, HTC can't subsidise their hardware in the same way Facebook can, and the Vive FLOW could be an unfortunate victim of that truth. Now, I'll just repeat myself briefly here. I do think that there is a space for a device like the Vive FLOW in the coming years in the VR ecosystem, but I still think it needs to be at a price which is attractive to people who might see this overall as something which suits their needs better than a Quest 2, but when you look at the specs and the functionality on paper, then it's lower on both of those categories, and people are going to see that, so it needs to be at a price which reflects that, or offer other things which the Quest 2 can't do but suits their needs better. So based on this, it only stands to reason in my opinion that price will be central in something like this becoming a success or not. Now, just very quickly, contrary to that, I do also think this is a direction from HTC which could mirror Apple's own approach to what they eventually release with their first VR products. Now, I would expect Apple's device to be a much higher spec than the Vive FLOW, certainly in terms of resolution, but Apple also have this sort of unique position where they have the ability to charge more of a premium for a device like that than HTC do, due to just overall brand recognition, loyalty, and the overall ecosystem that Apple offer. But really, this lifestyle device approach seems to fit in much better with Apple's product line than with a gaming device directly competing against the Quest. And this just makes much more sense for me when considering Apple's interest in VR as it moves slowly towards the AR glasses future that they inevitably want to reach. And just like HTC have done with the Vive FLOW, I don't think Apple will want separate dedicated VR controllers with their system, keeping the device focused on simplicity and ease of use. And in fact, there have actually been rumours which mimic what we're seeing here with Vive FLOW, that Apple will approach the controller issue in a very similar way, in that they will probably use a mobile phone as a 3DOF controller, or perhaps with future versions of mobile phones they could even allow for some kind of 6DOF functionality with that as well. Or perhaps by then hand tracking will be the dominant practice for these types of devices. It's difficult to say at this stage. So although I'm willing to be persuaded in the opposite direction, I do think that Vive FLOW represents something much closer to what Apple have planned with their Gen 1 headset than we could look to something like the Quest 2 actually does. But as always, this is only speculation anyway, and time will tell. Personally, although I find the concept of the Vive FLOW interesting and I think it certainly has its place, I'm not going to be picking one up for this base level price. It's just priced itself out of the market for me personally, and honestly it's probably not really directed at somebody like me that is more heavily invested in VR in both the PC side itself anyway, and probably not for a lot of people within the VR community. So I'm seeing a little bit of backlash against this device, although as I mentioned, I think overall, looking at it in a wider context, I still think it has its place, at least in future products, perhaps not this one. But I'll watch to see how the Vive FLOW performs from the sidelines, and we'll hopefully get a chance to try one or borrow one at some point in the coming months. But what do you think about the Vive FLOW? Will you be picking one up? And what will your use case be if that is the case? And that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Please consider picking up my science fiction virtual reality focused novel, The Memory Engine, a light-hearted tongue-in-cheek adventure through the metaverse, available on Amazon Kindle, paperback, and as an Audible audiobook. Links in the description to this video.